Hello friends, welcome to AkulmachLive and I am Chandrakant. Today we want to discuss in AAA about the climate change, and recently there has been a report by NASA that there has been unprecedented climate change that has happened on Earth. So friends, you can actually interact with me live, and if you have any questions you can post it here. Your name and your message will appear so that I can actually respond to you while I'm talking to you. So as soon as you're watching my program, this is streaming live on multiple platforms, you can actually post your questions and I can take your name and answer to your query. All right, so let's get back to our discussion. So the discussion is about NASA saying that from 2005 till 2020, the temperature of the Earth, or the temperature retention capacity of Earth, is simply doubled. And this is unprecedented. In case earlier, when the sun rays or the external heat was coming towards Earth used to reflect most of it and keep it only what is required. But now from 2005 till 2020, between just 15 years, the capacity of Earth to retain atmospheric heat is almost doubled. And that is a cause of a grave concern, because that is changing the climate drastically. Because Earth atmosphere is now going to absorb most of the heat which is coming in, and that can result into a runaway greenhouse effect. And this is a very serious situation. And in fact, I can share some experiences from my side. This time in India, India is a hot country, and Indian summers is also used as a sort of a proverb to explain hot weather. So Indian summers are very famous in terms of how much heat people have to experience during the summers. It's humid and hot. But surprisingly, this summer, the temperature never crossed 38 or sometimes 40. But I don't know whether you guys agree, whoever is watching right now my live streaming. But most of the in the month of June, usually from my childhood, I've seen that the temperature used to at least cross 45, and sometimes it reaches as high as 48, sometimes 49 also. So the summers in the month of June used to be very hot, but right now it's not that hot. Right now the temperature, let me check on my PC, is just 29 degrees, and we are in the middle of June, and it's almost noon. So this summer is not as hot as it used to be. Similarly, this winter in 2020, usually winter used to be very chilly. Temperature used to be almost touching 1 sometimes in the plains, and of course if you go to places like Amritsar, it used to touch 0 also sometimes. But this time I don't think it was so cold during winters. And the duration of the winter was also very short. Usually the winter used to last till month of Holi, especially in the North India, and then you start removing your sweaters and pullovers only on the day of Holi. That used to be the trend. But this time I think the temperature increased much earlier, and it was quite hot much earlier in month of January itself. So this time the winter was not very cold, and the summer is not very hot. So this shows that the climate is changing drastically, and it's changing quite a bit, in the sense that not having a very hot summer may be counterproductive for plants and animals, may be counterproductive for the rain producing clouds, weather. Maybe it will have impact maybe next year. So we don't know what is the damage the human activity is causing. So NASA has actually created a website, and if you search that, their study shows that from 2005 to 2020, the temperature retention in Earth's atmosphere is simply doubled, and that is at cosmic scale, very short period of time to double the retention part of it. And so it's sort of normalizing the temperature when we are not having too much heat in one area, like in India during summers. It's not very hot. That means the temperature is getting normalized, is getting heated up overall, and that will actually melt a lot of ice, and that will for the first time, in fact, a couple of years back, the North Pole is completely melted during summers, and then again it freezes up in the winters. But then if the temperature is sort of normalized across the globe, then a lot of ice will melt, and that will create widespread havoc. It may create floods. That means when it starts raining, there will be more rains, and when there are more rains, we don't know what to do with that extra water, and the rivers will create floods as a normal process. So I think that is where the challenge is, and I thought I'll discuss this. I am not seeing any comments. Maybe this is something which should be the top priority. Maybe the COVID widespread is a top priority right now, but I think this is also one of the major items that we need to discuss openly and see what we can do to improve the human activity so that we don't harm the nature. The answers are very, very simple. I think all of us know. It is being taught in the schools to toddlers also now. So answers are very, very, very straightforward. We don't have to burn a lot of fossil fuel. We have to get into electric revolution. Burning fossil fuel create greenhouse gases, which traps the heat, the sun's heat, into the atmosphere. So we are releasing the greenhouse gases artificially because of human activity, because of driving, because of our power generation, the thermal activity that we are generating, so and so on and so forth. So I think this is something that we must reduce. We must reduce the carbon footprint of whatever we do. Things like usage of paper, because when we are actually turning our trees into paper, there is a whole lot of industry behind it. There is supply chain which is consuming fossil fuel. There are also a lot of big plants which are, when I say plants, it's basically the factories which are taking the wood pulp and producing paper. So I think we have to reduce all that activity. We have to also ensure that we take care of the wildlife and also animals. We don't start consuming them. Certain places where people are used to having a lot of non-veg, I think they have to change their habits and get into more of a vegetarian diet, because I think we are going through a mass extinction event right now, and every year at least 1 or 2 species are going out and disappearing. So I think we have to ensure that we don't add to the problem and find solution and reduce the human activity. I think predominantly it's about having less carbon footprint. Make sure that we live naturally as much as possible. Do not produce the plastic or consume a lot of plastic. Do not have things like gases which can destroy the ozone layer, and also reduce the carbon emission into the atmosphere, and also sulfur dioxide, which most of the fossil fuel generate, and that is a very, very good greenhouse gas which will trap the heat. Because in the end, if we don't do that, who will be the sufferer? There'll be big tsunamis, there'll be a lot of floods, there'll be a lot of water level of the oceans will rise. And if you notice, most of the humanity actually live near the coastline across the world. So when the water rises, it will submerge a lot of cities where we are actually living right now. So it is in our own interest to make sure that whatever reports are coming after looking at the scientific data, which has been very meticulously calculated and presented by a scientist, we must take that very seriously and make sure that we do not add to the problem, become a solution. So I think we should start living a green life. We should also change our construction style. because a lot of heat is in the current buildings also is radiated back into atmosphere. So I think we should change our construction style in terms of how we are living. We have to build friendly buildings so that we don't have to use air conditioning systems in our homes, and as far as possible go solar, so that our dependency on the grid also reduces, because we can't keep increasing laying cables, and I think that is not a viable solution, because if we start manufacturing cables and towers to erect our transmission lines, again we are actually increasing the carbon footprint. So I think as far as possible, let's get into solar or some other means of power generation locally in our own houses, using wind or solar or whatever is available, natural resource available in different households and communities. I think the government also needs to relax certain regulations. In certain countries, private production of electricity is not allowed. It's regulated. Production of electricity is regulated. So I think this also requires government intervention to deregulate electricity production, so that whenever you are setting up your business or you want to provide electricity to your household, you should have that part of electricity production as your plan. So the architect who's designing buildings or green buildings or earth ships must also give you a plan how you can generate electricity for that power, and what kind of power devices you need, what kind of inverters, etc. Refrigerators, ACs. In certain earth ships, you can also create natural air conditioning system, and then you can also create a greenhouse within to produce your vegetables and things like that. So I think the life must get into that side of living standard, rather than becoming a concrete jungle, which has been the norm for last 100 years. And this report which has come last week by NASA, the doubling of atmospheric temperature in last 15 years is very, very serious. So friends, I'll end my monologue right now, and I look forward to receiving your comments on my AAA section of AkulmachLive. But I will catch up with you tomorrow again with something, some other analysis of some other news which is circulating. I think Twitter war is another one. Probably I'll talk about Twitter war tomorrow. Bye bye for today, and I'll catch up with you